Hello and welcome to We the People. It has been a momentous week. On Thursday, Hindustan Unilever, the Indian and Bangladesh unit of the Anglo-Dutch firm Unilever, announced that it would stop using the word fair on its Fair and Lovely skin products. Johnson & Johnson also announced on Thursday that it has discontinued 2 lines of skincare products from its brands that include the word fairness on its labels. Then on Friday, L'Oreal, the world's largest cosmetic and beauty company, announced that it will stop using words like whitening and fair in describing its products. Now, these announcements come amidst anti-racism protests and calls against racial inequality following George Floyd's death in the United States. And tonight we're asking, as MNCs distance themselves from whitening products, is it only lip service? Why dropping the fair from Fair and Lovely matters, or does it? Dropping the fair but keeping the product, is that unfair? Well, first joining us is actor Nandita Das, an active voice campaigning against racism in the world of performing arts. Ms. Das, first HUL, then Johnson & Johnson, now L'Oreal. It seems like a domino effect, but changing the name but not discontinuing the product. Johnson & Johnson at least is dropping 2 products. So in that sense, what is the importance of this move?
Yeah. But we have to welcome this kind of a dominoes effect. I mean, there is going to be peer pressure. I think that was kind of anticipated in some ways. Now, how, is it going to be tokenism? Is it going to be superficial? Is it going to actually sustain? Is it going to be just a rebranding and the products are going to remain the same? All that I think time will tell. And they are only using the existing prejudice that has existed for so long in our society. So till the mindset doesn't change, till a time there is demand for such things, the supply will continue in whatever name you may want. But I think these kind of conversations are very important. The fact that it has triggered so much of response, all kinds, from very cynical ones to very hopeful ones, that and also it just pushes us to think about our own selves, that how important it is for us to be comfortable in our skin, because once we stop defining ourselves in terms of the color of our skin, or even for that matter religion or gender, when we really start defining ourselves from a point of view of who we really are and how we think and what are we doing in life, then all of this hopefully will matter less and less. And once the mindset changes, then the demand for such products will also decrease.
Well, will the mindset change? Thanks, Nandita. Just hold that thought. In 2014, Nina Gavuluri made history by becoming the first Indian-American woman to become Miss America. And since then, she's been utilizing her platform to, amongst other things, bring change in the world of colorism. Nina, thank you so much for joining us. Now, since 2018, you've been working on a docu-series called Complexion, with a play on the word complex. Earlier this month, you created a petition calling on the world's biggest cosmetic companies to stop making skin whitening products and racist ads. What led you to do this?
Definitely my own experience. I think growing up in a South Asian household, you hear comments like, don't go out in the sun, you're going to get too dark. Or, oh, you'd be so much more beautiful if you were a few shades lighter. And each and every single one of us has had a comment like this or an experience like this about our skin color and attaching it to our self-worth. The final tipping point for me was the morning after I had won Miss America. And I remember waking up to a headline in an Indian newspaper front page that said, "Is Miss America too dark to be Miss India?" And that was a moment I had to stop and ask why. Why is this ideology of colorism so deeply embedded in our own culture? Why are we not embracing our own people, empowering them? And this is something that led me to the production of Complexion series, was really unpacking this idea of colorism, why it's so deeply seated in our culture around the world and in many countries globally.
And I remember, of course, that's shocking, that that headline. I possibly can't imagine how you felt that morning. But I read somewhere else that you were in India making a docu-series and you came across a mother buying this product, Fair and Lovely, that we're now, because of which we've sparked off this debate. Can you tell our audience about that?
Yeah, I was filming in India. Actually, this was a few years before I was filming. I was there in 2016 on behalf of the State Department. I worked closely with the Obama administration, and I went on tour with the State Department, and India was part of that tour. So I was in Mumbai, Hyderabad, and Vijayawada for that specific tour. And I remember we had stopped at one of the side street stands, and I see all of these packets of Fair and Lovely, and there was a mother who had been working in the fields all day, just very clearly by the sari that she was dressed in. And she had her 7-year-old daughter with her. And I see her at the end of the day spending the 5 rupees on this packet of Fair and Lovely and handing it to her daughter and telling her in Telugu, "So you don't have the life that I have." And I sincerely believe that this mother loved her daughter. I think any mother wants the best for their children and wants to see them succeed and have opportunities that they don't have. The problem with this is that she genuinely believed and ties this core belief that fair skin will lead to her daughter's success, that fair skin is ideal, that fair skin is more worthy. And that has been this hierarchical image that is built by these companies, by the Bollywood industry, by media conglomerates that really portray this image that fair skin is the only worthy skin. And unless we can dismantle that.
Absolutely. And given that, so in that context, companies may recall fairness products, but what of our obsession? So given that, what does this actually mean? Nina, hold on. Let me get Vikram Baidyanath here. He's the CEO of the Baidyanath Group. Vikram, what was your gut reaction on hearing this? Because, you know, Fair and Lovely is a juggernaut in India. It has marketed lighter skin as a path to success, to getting love, amongst other things, for decades. Unilever still sells skin lightening products through its other brands, I think Pond's, Vaseline, etc. So changing the name, keeping the product, what does that mean?
Well, first I want to tell you that the Indian fairness cream market was worth 450 million in 2019. So if it is very much a part of our psyche and our way of thinking, there's nothing wrong in it. There are more pressing issues that one can bring to the forefront. I don't think that this is something so bad. Just because somebody has a preference for fair skin or for lighter skin does not mean that they are discriminating against somebody who's not fair skinned. I'm not very fair skinned, but yes, I use a Fair and Lovely product. There's nothing wrong in it. I've been using lots of Ayurvedic products to ensure that I don't get sunburnt and that my skin remains fair. What most people do it. The fact that
your company manufactures these products?
No, we don't manufacture them. But coming from an Ayurvedic company, I know what it is that one should do to ensure that your skin remains lighter, you don't get sunburnt and things like that. As far as these companies are concerned, dropping the word fairness, to me, it makes no sense. One, because there is no need for them to drop it. The fact that there is a demand means that so many people want it. You're dropping the word fair, but the content of the cream remains the same. So the cream will still perform the same function that it was performing earlier. So this is nothing but some kind of a marketing gimmick, something that companies want to do to just fit in and to sell more and to ensure that they don't run into trouble with any of the activists, which to me makes no sense.
Nina, could you respond to this? Perhaps this is the reality on the ground, and a little bit of social good campaigning doesn't hurt any companies. Is that what this is all about?
Well, I think this is a piece of a much larger problem. And the fact of the matter is that actually fair skin, this ideology, this belief, it does affect your entire community. It does affect careers, it affects marriages, it affects every industry. It is so deeply seated and has trickled down. So I think recognizing just from it is absolutely racism. And from the series and the documentary of Complexion, I want people to recognize, companies to recognize the faces behind who are buying their products, the faces of these mothers, the faces of children who are truly who are contemplating suicide because they are bullied, because they are dark. This is not just a preference towards light skin. This is truly an ideology of colorism that is inherently racist, that fair skin is the only type of worthy skin. Do I think changing a product name changes that ideology? Absolutely not. I think the intention behind how Unilever rolls out their rebranding campaign will be incredibly telling of their true intentions. How we break this cycle of colorism is not only companies, it is the Bollywood industry, having more skin tones reflected in campaigns, and of course media as well. This is a piece of a much larger conversation that needs to happen within India, and it is not to be ignored.
Neena Valluri, thank you so much for joining us and raising some very important points. This is an issue that's been affecting many Indian women, young girls, and now increasingly we're seeing men increasingly become the new market for these skin whitening products. Thank you so much. Nandita Das, let me come back to you. Now, you had said that companies are not the root cause of discrimination. They're just using this age-old prejudice to sell their product. So, are corporations being socially responsible, or are they reflecting public opinion now?
Right. No, I think this is more a global pressure. I mean, it's triggered probably by Black Lives Matter, and also that was not an old. I mean, that's not a new slogan, right? It has been there for a long time, which was often shunned away even by moderates, and corporations never really cared about it. It's not something. It's not a new issue. But because of the fact that George Floyd got killed in front of literally the world, we saw it happen. And that kind of, in some ways, it was a tipping point. And when Black Lives Matter became sort of a worldwide slogan to protest against such oppression and such abuse, then I think in Indian market also they said, oh, that there is a certain amount of hypocrisy. Here you're selling fairness creams and selling this dream that when you become fair, you're going to get everything. You're not accepting a country that is largely dark. You're kind of making us feel small, and women are losing their sense of self and confidence. Then they start saying, okay, that's kind of very hypocritical. So I'm sure it triggered the public opinion in that sense. The time was right. Maybe it was just a right thing to do. Also, there is a collective pressure that's happening, and maybe it's posturing or it's virtual signaling, whatever it may be. We don't know. We don't want to question also anybody's intention till we see where do they actually lead it to. Because if it is genuine intention, then they will follow it through. Then it will change in the products. It will reflect in what the new words are. What are they really talking about? So all of that, and I think it's a bit of a chicken and egg as well. The more imageries we see, I mean, as dark women, we are not represented anywhere. Look at the films, look at all these fashion shows, the magazines, television programs, hoardings. Everywhere the images are of primarily light-skinned women. So you kind of increasingly feel that I'm just not good enough. I might as well use that and be more acceptable. Who doesn't want to be more acceptable?
So it's just preying on fears. Okay, now since both Neena and Nandita Das have mentioned Bollywood and the impact that Bollywood, the role Bollywood plays in all of this, let's try and get Sayani Gupta up, the actor, to join us. Bikram, meanwhile, two quick questions. If you're saying it's such a big market, how come your company yourself hasn't chosen to go in for products like this, which you've admitted that you use on yourself? Because the men, now we're increasingly saying that women, perhaps, maybe in the upper, 2% of India or whatever, have become more comfortable in their own skin, in their own color. Some of our top supermodels are duskier. We have some actresses, maybe not in mainstream Bollywood, but there's certainly some faces out there. But it's now the new target group seems to be men, and there's a huge market there that these companies, MNCs, Indian companies are focusing on, and that's the men.
That's because Bednath is a 100% purely Ayurvedic company, and some of the ingredients that are used in all kinds of creams, whether it's fairness creams or all the other cosmetic creams that you find in the market, we cannot really use them and then call ourselves 100% Ayurvedic.
Okay. And about the fact that men now increasingly are having the same issues that women have over the years, have fallen for.
There are no issues, the thing is that it's the same thing as being fit. We've had that conversation before. People want to be fit. There are some people who don't want to be skinny. There are some people who want to be muscular. It's just about a preference. And if that preference is there, it's there. Why do people think that having a preference is having a prejudice? It's not the same thing. And if the majority people have a certain kind of a preference, respect it. Let it be. It's fine.
Okay, let it be. It's fine, says Vikram Bedana. Thanks so much, Vikram, for that. But you know, in India, colorism has also long been reinforced by a much older tradition. I'm talking about matrimonial ads alongside categories like education, caste, skin tone options like fair, dusky, wheatish appear in these ads. Now, Shaadi.com, one of the world's largest matrimonial sites, recently came under fire after a user, Megan Nagpal, who joins us now from Toronto, signed on to Shaadi.com, and Megan, you were shocked, dismayed to discover that there was a skin tone filter on the site, and you took it up with the company. What was that experience like? What was the response of the company?
So initially I tried to reach out to them on Twitter, but I didn't receive any response directly from the company. So I tried to email them. And I just said, why is this filter still there in 2020? You know, we are in the midst watching protests happening around the world. And yet we are still, you know, we still have this filter on a matrimonial website. So I decided to email Shaadi.com. And the response I got from the customer service representative is, please understand, this is a matrimonial site and this is what most parents require. And I was just shocked by that answer because I just felt that was inappropriate and unacceptable. So what I had done was I had taken it to a Facebook group, and another member of this Facebook group, Hetal, she had created a petition, and that petition had spread. It spread all over the internet, and we were able to get a response from Shaadi.com through a lifestyle blogger, Roshni Patel. And yeah, eventually Shaadi.com said that this was a legacy feature, that it wasn't functional, but it was removed within 24 hours.
They removed, but initially they said what all these companies do, that this is what the parents wanted, this is what the customer wants, the customer is king. And Hetal also joins us. Hetal Lakhani is an Indian living and working in the US. Hetal, you then started that petition which led to the site taking down that filter. Hetal joins us from Texas. But Hetal, you and Megan, both of you were shocked, surprised, dismayed, whatever, you know, all these adjectives one can think of. But why, what made you think that you could affect change? Is that in itself a sign that the world is changing?
For sure. I guess the notion that fair skin makes a better bride or husband is pretty much of significance yet, whilst completely ignoring the personality, experience of life, and the ability to make a good partner, son, daughter-in-law, you know. So this filter was pretty biased, and it did not require to be there. And well, colorism has significant impact, you know, in our community, especially for women. People with darker skin experience greater prejudice, violence, bullying, social sanctions, and all kinds of skin lightening treatments are recommended to them, you know, under the guise of make them desirable or make them more beautiful, you know, things like that. So this was needed, and this change has to be brought about, that color doesn't define a person is a person, you know, irrespective of the pigment in their skin.
All right. We do have Sayani Gupta now joining us. Sayani, I don't know if you had a chance to hear Neena Davuluri and Nandita Das, who were on the show, other guests on the show. They both mentioned Bollywood, right? The impact of Bollywood, impressionable young minds. Are things changing? This supposed new era of awakening that we're seeing in our society, is that also there in Bollywood? Because sometimes many say the silence of Bollywood is deafening when it comes to this issue.
Well, absolutely. And I'm in complete agreement with what Neena said, what Nandita said. And in fact, last year, Nandita had done a video to celebrate all kinds of skin color that I was part of. And a lot of us from the industry were part of it. Well, this is a conversation that's been going on right from the beginning. I remember when I first moved to Bombay, which was 8 years ago, I've always been extremely vocal about this. It's because, you know, the politics of image and what you're trying to tell through your characters, through the people who you represent, it also changes people's minds, right? It also influences people. So being filmmakers, being writers, storytellers, one has to be extremely cautious about the fact that what you're trying to tell and what is the story and people you're trying to represent. And as actors, I feel that we have a grave responsibility in our hands. Having said that, I've always said no to fairness creams or fairness products.
You've gotten those offers?
Yes, in fact, it's very, very strange why this said brand has constantly, have offered me ads or ad campaigns or audition calls. There was one day I remember where I got 3 calls for 3 separate ads for the same brand, which actually goes to say that how much money actually gets spent on these ad campaigns. And, it's almost like a propaganda. And as Hetal was saying right now, and Nina was saying that this has been going on for decades, right? This constant, this image of this fair is only beautiful, or your fairness or the count of your melanin in your skin is directly proportional to your success, or the love you get, or the career you're going to have, or the marriage prospects, all of that. And I remember telling the second person who called me that day that please don't call me again. I've always said I will never do fairness products. And she, in fact, from the other hand, on the phone said, oh, I'm so happy to hear that. I also do not believe in this. So I was like, then why are you doing it? And she said, money. Yes. So the third person who called me, it was a guy who called me, and this was about, another ad for the same brand. And I told him, listen, I said already that I don't want to do this. And he said, okay, I understand. And he calls me back in like 10 minutes saying, the director says he doesn't understand why you're saying no. Cut to, I've gotten into a huge argument with a huge DOP friend of mine who's a very big cinematographer in the industry. And he's been shooting a lot of these product campaigns. So this is to say that it's not only the brand or the face of the brand, but people who are involved at different stages of the campaign. Everyone needs to be cautious and careful. And, this is a change which has been, a lot of people have been campaigning against fairness products. A lot of people have been extremely vocal, but now thanks to, Black Lives Matter and this entire world, talking against racism and any, the politics meted out against people of color. Now I think the brand had to take a stand. But again, I'm afraid that maybe this is a cosmetic change. It's not really, as someone said on the panel, that you're not actually changing the composition. Or, Fair and Lovely, for example, according to Business Standard, it's a 2,000 crore brand. It has 40% of market share of fairness products. Having said that, will they do one campaign to actually say that what they have been propagating for all these years, decades actually, were wrong? Or will they put out one ad campaign to actually say and clarify that fairness has nothing to do with the quality of life someone leads? It has nothing to do with the person. It has nothing to do with your success rate. And the count of your melanin can't be, cannot pose as
as Nina said, it will be closely watched how these companies take this forward before they can just be adjudged as, pulling off a PR stunt over here. But Sayani, you mentioned, you touched upon this a little bit. If I can just play devil's advocate, how has this then affected the roles that you're offered, for example, right? Because mainstream Hindi cinema hardly has now a few dusky stars. Parallel cinema, online, Netflix, all of these, the shows that we're seeing online, Bollywood's liberal others we're called, they accommodate more unconventional women, dark-skinned beauties as they're called, but the roles they get then are of, women that society doesn't approve of. A little too strong, a little too powerful, a little too, they live by their own rules.
One of the first things that I was told when I moved to Bombay was you should keep your mouth shut because you come across as too brave and
intimidating.
Too intelligent. Yeah, so I laughed at it. I still do. I don't think it's come in the way of the work I do. And I can say that I'm probably fortunate and a lot more fortunate and privileged than many others out there. It cannot be an easy path, honestly. But, having said that, I think my contemporaries, be it Radhika Apte, be it Kalki, although she's white, she has a brown skin, she says, Richa Chadhan, Nandita herself, there are a lot of people who, Swara, they've been constantly vocal about this.
Yes.
And in fact, the choices that we've made through the work has been reflective of that. In fact, one of the reasons that I got cast in Margarita was also my skin color, because they wanted a dusky person. They wanted to celebrate, somebody who was dusky or wheatish, but still attractive and beautiful. And the same with Barba Dekho, which was again a mainstream film.
So things are changing.
So things are changing, but again, these are small droplets in a huge ocean, and but the conversation needs to happen, and it's something that, as I said,
and I'm glad we can be part of it, of allowing this conversation to happen, and I promise we will continue to do so on We the People and on NDTV. So to close, thank you all for joining us. Perhaps superficial, perhaps just a symbolic move, but for the next generation of Indian youth, kids, girls, boys will not have to step into a store like that child that Neena mentioned and have a product called Fair and Lovely handed to them by their mother or their father, and that in itself is a huge step in the right direction. Thank you all for joining us tonight.